Hey, what is up everyone? Welcome back to another review, and today I'm taking a look at another Transformers kit by Flame Toys, and this right here is the Furai model Starscream. If you haven't seen my review of the Optimus Prime and Nemesis Prime, you should check that one out. Those are awesome. And honestly, personally, I actually prefer this one right here, so hold on and we'll get into that review. First, I will mention that this was sent to me by the awesome people over at Flame Toys. I saw their stuff on Instagram and just had to have them. So I put all the links to their social media things down there in the description. So if you are feeling these model kits right here like I am, you can check them out down there. I put a bit of the feed of their Instagram here on the side so you can see the sort of awesome things they make. They don't just make these model kits, they also make some absolutely epic looking figures, and once I'm done with this review, I'm going to ask them for some of those as well. I just have to check them out. But anyway, you might be wondering, if they went with Optimus for the first model kit, how come they didn't do the logical thing and go for Megatron for the next one? Well, it seems like they're going to be releasing him as what I think is a figure, and apparently that is the comic version, the particular comic by IDW Publishing, I think. I have never read, so I can't really make any comments on that. But anyway, let's get right into this review. So finally, there is what Starscream will look like just snapped together. I did add a couple of the stickers, just the more kind of classy ones that aren't as noticeable, ones that are really important, like the red strips on his wings, as well as the Decepticon logo. Besides that, I did do a little bit of panel lining, and just in case this is your first time on the channel and you don't really know all that much about model kits, panel lining is the easiest and laziest way to make a model kit look better instantly. Basically, all you do is run a particular kind of panel lining marker through the lines in the kit to highlight them, then just erase those messy parts with an eraser. It's so simple, so effective, and just makes all those details pop. Of course, there are other ways to do it. You can use a wash or a different kind of paint or ink, but I find this is the simplest way. But all in all, this guy looks incredible. He looks so good. The colors on here are absolutely on point, and he looks awesome. Honestly, I will mention that when I was a kid, I did have quite a few G1 Transformers, and in the kind of like nostalgic magic way your mind works, they looked like this to me, not like that. So in a way, these awesome models really do harness that nostalgic magic that makes your mind remember things better than they looked, and make them look awesome right now. I know there are a ton of cool Transformers figures out there. I never really got into them that much because I feel they just didn't look that awesome. And when they did, they were expensive. But this right here is the way I remember Starscream. They really nailed the colors on here. I love them. That blue pops so much. The red looks great. And all in all, I feel they tried to maintain that toyish feel here. It looks awesome with the kind of Japanese super robot-esque proportions. It's got the over-the-top, almost Revoltech kind of articulation on here, but at the same time they maintain the soul of Transformers, which was that they were toys. Honestly, there is absolutely no point in me getting into the whole old school versus Michael Bay style debate thing, but this right here to me looks so much better, so much more awesome than this POS right here. But once again, I'm not going to get into that. That's a taste thing, and for me, this is what I'm talking about. So on a quicker, closer inspection of this thing, like I mentioned, the colors are great. We've got that crazy blue, that nice subdued gray, a darker gray in the joint sections, that super hot red, and then we've got some clear sections on the cockpit here, that clear yellow, and we also have clear sections in the eyes. And this right here to me is probably the biggest, not down point, but more like wasted potential on this kit. There is no light piping, but these are clear parts. That would have been so much nicer with light piping, or even better, some kind of LED, but this is too small for something like that, really. But it would have been nice to have some light piping. Like I mentioned, I did panel line this and use some of the stickers, so if I flip this around to the back, you can see what those wings look like when they're naked. And there have been a lot of improvements to this kit compared to the Optimus. And for a company that's just onto their second model kit, basically anything I would have said to them to improve that I feel would have needed improving, they've improved on this one. And the first one I'll mention, because I'm talking about the back of the wings here, is they have embossed the Decepticons logo here. This will make it really easy to paint. Again, I did use the stickers on the front. They do recommend painting this for the best effect. But if you look back on the Optimus, all we had for the Autobots logo was stickers. There was no embossed section behind that. So if you did want to paint it, you'd have to freehand it, which would be hard. But on this guy right here, Starscream, that'll be no issue whatsoever. Just run a little bit of purple over that, and you're golden. Like I mentioned, this is just their second model, because technically the Nemesis Prime is exactly the same as the Optimus Prime, and they've done so many improvements on this, which I'll try to get through pretty quickly. The first one is, and the most annoying aspect about Optimus, that it has no stand or base functionality whatsoever. That's not the case here. Starscream, 3mm hole in its butt, just where it needs to be. A lot of the other improvements I'll just mention right now, but they will be talked about later on in the review because that's where they fall in. And that is the articulation has been made even more dynamic on this kit, which to me is awesome because the Optimus was great already. They've changed the plastic that's been used on here. It's not that same old brittle plastic that was on the Optimus, which I had no problems with, but I have heard some people have had with it breaking. This time around, it's a more rubbery to the feel, shiny plastic. It does give it a bit of a more toyish look, which I dig, but it looks better, feels more durable, and it means at the joints it catches a little bit better and can maintain those poses. And on top of that plastic and more dynamic articulation like I mentioned, another down point I felt with the Optimus was that it only had fists and holding hands, but they have improved upon that here with the Starscream once again by throwing in a pair of dynamic hands. So that means with that awesome articulation, you even can get more dynamic poses by throwing in the widespread hands. Awesome. All in all, I love this little kit. It is even better than the Optimus, and I can't wait to see what they do next. But moving on to the accessories, and here it is with everything it comes with. So compared to the Optimus, this doesn't come with all that much. Basically what we get in here is 3 sets of hands and the shoulder guns. I will mention, however, there is a leftover face in here because of the fact that the runner or sprue that it was on was reproduced twice for the arms and legs, so it just happened to be made twice. So this is a little bit of wasted potential. Starscream does have a face, unlike Optimus, so it would have been nice to see some extra expressions in here. But besides that, what we do have is a pair of fists, a pair of widespread open hands, as well as a pair of holding hands which can be used to hold those guns. And of course, those guns can be placed either in the hands or up there on the shoulders. So now moving on to the articulation, and besides the awesome design and proportions of these kits, it is the articulation that really got me. One thing that seems to always flop for Transformers toys is the articulation. Because they transform, that tends to be prioritized over the actual articulation itself, and because this guy right here doesn't transform, it is just the robot variant of Starscream. That means we get a whole lot of articulation in here just for posing. Okay, so as usual, let's get this started from the head down. So there's the head all the way up, all the way down. As for the side to side, you can spin that all the way around. You will notice that the joint is towards the back of the head, which gives you a lot more of this downward facing glare, which I love. In here we do have a giggity giggity, so that means that's a double jointed joint in there, in the neck and in the torso. At the shoulder there is the arm all the way up. We do have a little joint in here which allows this to move out and in ever so slightly, so not really a whole lot there, so you won't be folding its arms. If we move that wing out of the way, maybe we can get that, yeah, all the way around 360 degrees. Full rotation at the upper arm. There is that bend at the elbow, very nice. And the wrist right there is your standard ball and socket, so that means you've got a little bit of flexion and extension, and that can rotate all the way around. To me, the best area of articulation on this, the most impressive aspect, is the ab crunch. So we've got 1, 2, 3 joints in here, which does mean the stability is affected slightly, which I'll talk about in a minute, but there is the bend all the way to the front. So there's the ab crunch to the front, and there it is all the way to the back. So that right there is a lot. So like I mentioned about the stability, it is quite stable besides what I will call a little bit of give. So you can see it kind of moves slightly like that. That is all the time. So this isn't the joints actually moving. I think it's the polycap shifting slightly. So basically you have to hyperextend it past whatever point you want because it may move back slightly. This just takes a bit of getting used to, but it's not going to fall out of the pose. It just moves slightly within that pose. And of course, like you saw already, this cockpit can move in and out to move it out of the way when you're posing him, and to move it back in front of where those joints are. Pretty cool. Flipping him around to the back then, and what we've got is the movement on the wings. So these just flap in and out very simply. This is just a bare polycap right here, so if you don't like... Oh, it does twist as well. Okay. But if you don't like seeing a polycap, you may not like that, but for the most part, you won't be looking at the back. That's why I don't panel line the back. Maybe like 2% of the review is spent looking at that side. Usually it's this side. But yeah, it seems as well as flappy in and out, these can rotate forward and back slightly to go with the pose you're putting it in. Cool. Once again here, because there is 3 joints, that means it can rotate slightly, not at the top one, but a little bit at the second one and a lot at the bottom one. Actually, all the way around. As for the skirting armor, these are individual, so up, up. This one can kind of move up, gets a bit caught under here though. That's got a bit of forward and back rotation. And not only does this have a premium butt flap, this is an ultimate premium butt flap TM. I mean, seriously, it's got 2 moving butt flaps. Very nice. So moving down, and then inside the waist section here, we do have these 2 little parts that bring the entire leg down like so. These are separate to each other, so you can bring one down and the other one not down. So this is handy because they've done something that I'm not a big fan of when it comes to kits like this. And I know it is part of the design, but it is this full front armor here. So you do get quite the amount of rotation there to the back. You can see the joint inside is completely separate. But what happens when they raise that section up there is that won't rotate any more than that. So if you wanted to rotate in a bit, maybe when doing some kind of aerial pose or something like that, bending the knee in, you want to bring the leg out somewhat up like this, it does kind of get blocked and you can't bring it any further in either direction. But because it has this little drop down part, that means you do get more out of that. And if you angle it the right way, you won't really notice that it's sticking out a lot from there. So that is pretty cool. And it is a good way to maintain the actual look while still getting some extra articulation out of that. So that is cool. Next up then, there is the kick all the way up to the front. A little bit blocked, but not too bad. And as for the splits, there we go. Next up then, there is the bend at the knee. That is pretty damn good. This little knee section can move out and in. This part here can slide up and down, but I don't really get as to why. And around here on the back, this flap section can move up like so. Lastly then, and probably the weakest joint on this I find, I mean weak when it comes to range of motion, is the ankle. There it is all the way up to the front, not much. All the way to the back, not bad. But it's that side to side pivot that is the letdown. So that means with wide leg poses, you can't really go beyond this without them looking kind of wonky. So that is a little bit of a letdown there. But finally then, lastly, we do have a bend here. Ooh, ass. But lastly then, down here at the foot, we do have a bend at the toe, which is pretty damn cool. So all in all, the articulation on this, like I mentioned, is pretty awesome, besides that one little letdown at the ankle. But all in all, besides that, it is absolutely fantastic. So that is it for the review, and all I can say is I am so glad I came across these guys on Instagram because these kits are awesome. For a first kit, Optimus is absolutely awesome, and Starscream here is even better in certain ways. Honestly, the only 2 things I think could be better about this is some light piping in the eyes and just a bit of an improvement to those ankle joints, but all in all, it is so awesome. For me, there isn't a lot of Transformers toys or model kits or anything out there that capture that old school nostalgic feel I have towards Transformers and kind of repackage it into an awesome modern day take on something. These kits right here are exactly how my brain remembers Transformers to look, with a cool, almost Japanese super robot feel thrown in there as well, but not too much. So far, I'm loving this line. Can't wait to see what else they're going to release. I really do want to take a look at the figures that these guys are making, because seriously, look at them there. There's Drift, which I have to say looks worlds better than that. Drift, by the way, is a figure, so is their Tarn, which looks so damn cool. And just like the Optimus I showed you last time, which is a model kit, we also have the IDW Optimus coming up soon, so if this more almost classic looking Optimus is more up your alley, then keep an eye out for that. By the way, I did put a link to all their social medias down there if you want to check them out. That's in the description. And hopefully I'll be looking at more of these in future on the channel. But anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to come back for more reviews, and I'll see you next time.